Hello, friends and friends and friends. I this is going to be a little different, and it's going to be a video that I want to put on my front page of my YouTube channel. You know, the one that tells you what we're all about. And my journey to this is the how I my journey to discover the real Jesus. Okay, that's the title. Probably going to be something like that. The title of this video. Years ago, I picked up a Bible and started reading it. I was, first of all, blown away by what the Bible really was, what was in it. And like, I would get to some of the books of the Bible and be like, that's in the Bible? This is in the Bible? And so, I kept reading and studying. I got to the end of the Bible and I was like, wow, that was a ride. Let's do it again, right? So started over. um Started reading again, and read then I realized, there's certain things I don't understand. They're sort of confusing for me. And so I started looking on the internet. YouTube has a lot of people out there that say they know, and I was humbled about it, honestly, because I thought, okay, there's people that have spent their lifetime studying the Bible, and so I am going to defer to their knowledge base, right? To their understanding of the Bible, because I mean, to be honest, if you never read the Bible and you go in the first time, you're gonna be like, wow, that's confusing. And so you're thinking 50 years, John MacArthur spent 50 years or more in ministry. Okay, so I thought this guy has had to have figure out just about everything. So I listened to endless hours of sermons. And so I kept looking for answers. Every time I went through the Bible, I would say, okay, I don't understand this. Look for a sermon or someone that would talk about it and stuff. And it feels like at the time, the the algorithm was trying to push these guys out there to anybody that was looking for answers regarding the Bible. So, but there's so much contradiction. Everybody seems to be interpreting the Bible in their own way. And then you have things like, so I'm like, okay, they seem to think they know, but the more I read, the more what the people in the reform camps, the John MacArthur, Bodie Bottom, Steve
Just
Lawson,
because you're on the same page, don't mean it's the right page.
yeah, Steve Lawson, who was that other guy? Uh, Shoot, I can't remember. The guy with the has I think he's got palsy or something like that. What's his name? Justin Peters. All of those guys, every single one of those guys I watched. Okay, hours and hours and hours of their sermons. Okay, I mean, you name him, I've seen him. And one of the ladies I really enjoyed and was Susan Heck. Okay, so I watch all of these guys, right? And I'm like, well, I don't understand some of the things they're saying. They're very contradictory to what the Bible to what I'm reading in the Bible. Now, I will tell you, I'm a lifelong reader. I have always enjoyed reading. The longer the book, the more complicated. I read everything from trashy novels to your literary books and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, I think I'm smart enough to understand. But some of the stuff that they were saying made no sense when I compare them to the Bible. So I'm reading through it and I'm like, okay, so they don't know. And then I found a disenfranchised group of people called the preterists, okay, which believe that everything in the Bible has already been accomplished and that the book is in the past, not our future, okay? Now, before you set your hair on fire, okay, and turn off, uh, I'm I will tell you why I believe but I don't push that on anybody because I don't think that that's a matter. I don't believe that it's a matter of eternal life. Okay, what you believe and how you believe the Bible and what you come to understand, all of that. Somehow, though, that still didn't do it. I kept thinking, this is the things that they say do not sound like Jesus. Okay, uh, Jesus, uh, the way that the Reformed people portrayed him, the way that the other camps portray the Baptists, the Presbyterians, all these people, it's like the way that they portray God and Jesus does not seem to comport to the way that I read God and Jesus in the Bible. So you read, you have. Then finally, this last, probably about this last year, I started reading. I started being more interested in the history of Christianity in and of itself. This religion that we follow. And so you have the reformers, right? That split from what was the Catholic Church, and they have their own ideas and the way that they interpreted the Bible, and somehow that has trickled down to us. Okay, but they are, uh, what is it? Almost over 1,000 years away from what or Jesus's life. Okay, so they still didn't seem to be able to reconcile the Jesus I see in the Bible with the Jesus that they talk about. So, okay, well, somebody else should know. So I'm thinking, okay, the Catholic Church. And so I spent some time studying the Catholic Church, the history of that, and this and that, the Trinity. And I'm like, okay, well, that still doesn't make any sense. Okay. Their teachings do not reflect Jesus and God in the Bible. Okay. Walk with me on this one because I'm getting to a point. So I walk back a little further. And now I find myself with the church fathers. Okay, you have Clement of Rome, and and I can't remember all the names of these guys. And so they are closer to Jesus, but they're still, except for Clement, they're still over 100 years away from Jesus. And I'm like, 100 years is a huge span of life in anybody's calculations. Okay, think about. Okay, I'm only 50 years old. Okay, but when I grew up, we didn't have cell phones, no computer, no internet. We didn't have. I mean, all we had was the landlines. Another thing that my husband and I were discussing the other day, bottled water wasn't a thing. Okay, and I mean, so on and so forth. Okay, so if you think about the changes that happen over a period of time, they're enormous. And so 100 years from where Jesus lived to where you have these people interpreting the Bible for you, the church fathers, 300 years, the Nicene Creed is over 300 years away from where Jesus was. Okay, so I'm walking my way back through church history, and I'm like, okay, well, the again, as much as I can understand, is like these church fathers are not really. There's something missing there. Okay. Now, one of the biggest problems that we have, I believe, in Christianity is that we look at the other religions, especially Jewish religion, as the enemy. Okay? Anybody in the Jewish religion, they rejected Jesus, they rejected God, and so we have nothing, we don't want anything to do with them. And so we have an ignorance of the true context in which Jesus lived lived, in which Jesus spoke, and in the things that he said. So as I'm walking back my way back, all of a sudden, I am actually in the Jewish world, okay? The Judaism of the time, and trying to understand who Jesus is. And this is where a lot of scholarship is talking right now. If we don't understand the context in which Jesus lived, we don't know what he's talking about. We misunderstand who Jesus truly is, who Yahweh truly is. And so we get a distorted view of who is who. So what you want to do, and what I do, is I try to read Jesus in context. Jesus was a Jewish man that lived in the first century in a Hellenistic Jewish Roman Hellenistic world, in a Jerusalem that was a Jewish world that was taken over by the Roman Empire. Okay, they were literally they were sitting in a powder keg, so to speak, where that was about to go off, and Jesus comes into this context. He is coming to fulfill all the promises of the Old Testament. Now, the best way for you to understand who Jesus is and who Jesus was is to be so familiar with the Old Testament that when you when you read Jesus's or hear Jesus talking in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, you can pick up what he's referencing. You can pick up what he's talking about, because the book that Jesus read the most was the Hebrew Bible. He spent who knows how many hours, days, and years studying that. Okay? So now think about it. Jesus spent his life reading the Old Testament. There was no television, no internet, no radios, no anything else. Their life was dedicated to studying. Okay? So we're shorthand and handicapped there. So I find, and this is all not happening all at the same time in my own life. I mean, I have slowly walked my way there, and there's a lot of books I have read, podcasts, sermons, all of this stuff.
Church after church.
We've been to church after church after
study
church.
after study, Bible study
studies,
classes.
all the things.
I mean, you're talking 15, 20 years of this stuff.
Yeah, it's an ongoing investigation, searching through who truly Jesus is. So I will tell you what I found and where we're going. So recently there's a book that I will do a review on. I'm still in the last pages of it, called The Law of Jesus. I want to share the name with you real quick. So be patient with me, please. Um, Come on. I'm trying to fire up my Kindle so I can on my computer so I can tell you the name. But what this book confirmed for me is some of the things that I already knew. Starting with the simple fact that okay, so it's Jesus and the Law of Moses by Paul T. Sloan. With this book was
Okay.
a long time ago. I read this book by a Jewish writer or theologian, Joaquin Jeremias, right? And he talked about how, if you understand the Jewish context of Jesus Christ, you would be able to understand him better. So, for instance, we always think that Jesus came to do away with the law of Moses, and therefore he was less. He was breaking the law all the time, and especially when it came to the Sabbath regulations and healings and all this other stuff. One of the things that this book does is slowly walk you through how that's not true. Now the book from what Jeremiah was a little more technical and a little harder for me to follow. This last book was not as hard for me to follow, but it's the same thing that the same conclusion. Jesus did not break any of the Jewish laws that he was under. And so with that context, he redefines some of the things that he does. And you have to look at Jesus in his own context, in his own historical context, and same for the Old Testament. There's a lot of things that, regarding the issue about women, what they think about women, what they thought about women, and what our role is, and what the churches say our role is now in the churches. Okay. And I will tell you, this idea that women are not allowed to teach, preach, and do any of that is a new thing. It's a new 21st, the 18th century idea. This was not something that was part of the life of the people of the Old Testament, and it changed in the New Testament for reasons that I will talk to you about at some point. But what I'm trying to tell you is, you're gonna have to pick up the Bible and read it yourself, because people have been mediating Jesus to you in a way that is not real. The you can still understand who Jesus is. He's the Son of God. And you can still understand in the Sermon on the Mount some of the things that he wants you, how he wants you to live your life, and who he wants you to be, and how you're supposed to behave. But if you miss the Old Testament, if you don't read what Jesus read, how can you ever know what he's truly saying? I'll give you an example. In the parable of the prodigal son, right? That's what we call it, the prodigal of the prodigal son. Really is a story about two sons, right? Because there is two sons. And a lot of the ways that I have heard this exegeted for me is that the son that went away and wasted the father's fortune and came back, he was the evil son. He was the bad son, okay? But in reality, if you read that parable in its proper context, the son that was evil is the son that stayed behind. Okay? So reread that. The prodigal son is not the bad son. Okay? Just think about it. Anyways, so where am I getting with this? One of the things that will change probably in our channel is we're gonna look more at the Jewish context of where Jesus was born, of the historical background of it, and all in the, and I'll share the resources with you, because aren't you tired of having people mediating Jesus for you, telling you who he was and how he did this and he's that and he's that, but you're looking through the lenses of someone else. And that's the last thing I want to say and I want to address.
Favorite part of the day, but that wouldn't be true without
The Bible is not,
like the shopping.
it's not a moral, it's not a moral tale. That is not how Jewish writings work. They present to you a story, and from which you are to derive the moral message. And they won't tell you what it is, okay? They will tell you, like I just said, the parable of the two sons, and you are supposed to figure out who's who in the zoo, so to speak, okay? But the whole point of the Bible is supposed to be meditation literature, so that you can meditate on wisdom, God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, all the things that you're supposed to think about while you read the Bible. But again, everybody's life will color the way that they will interpret the Bible. I am a Mexican woman that was born 50 years ago. I came to this country very young. I have 4 children. I have a husband. I'm happily married. I am, we live in Texas. All these things, all of those things play a role on who I am and how I view the Bible. And if you grew up in a very Christian Orthodox context of the Bible, of Christianity, that colors the way that you see the Bible. Same like someone, this, for instance, I said this today, a woman that has had an event of sexual abuse in their life will really have a hard time with some of the things and the way that things are described in some of the prophets, some of the things that happen in the book of Genesis. And so her impression of those passages will be very different than the way I'll view them on someone else. Same if you were born in a country where certain pagan things are still happening, etc., etc. So while God is the same for everybody, He is the same moral being, and Jesus is the same that He was. How we experience them changes depending on where we come from and where we're going. So let's go find out who truly Jesus is. Okay, and your first entry into it is if you read the Bible. Read the Bible over and over again until you start to hear the true voice of God. No one can tell you. No one can tell you the true voice of God. God has a message for you directly. Jesus has a message for you directly. Okay? And so the first step is read the Bible. Used to be a long time ago, no one could afford a Bible. Okay? If a family Bible existed, it was put away somewhere where no dust or anything like that. They were works of art. Today, you can get a Bible in any way, shape, or form you want it. You can get it just about in any languages you want it and everything like that. So there's no excuse. But I would invite you to read the Bible for its own in its own terms. Instead of bringing in everything everybody else over the universe have done and put on top of the Bible, just get rid of all of that. Open your Bible and read. And slowly try to find context of the times and age and all the cultural references there are from where the Bible was written. There's a lot of material out there, but I'll share some as we go along on this channel. And the first one will be, I don't know if this week I'll have time to do it. I just finished reading this book. I'll share it with this, just a quick preview of the page. Let me see, where is it? Yeah, this is the one I want to share. Is it this one? Yes, sure. Okay. This one, Rediscovering Eve, an ancient Israelite women in context. So this should be a good start to figure out the context of the Bible, of the Old Testament. But for sure, read the Old Testament, figure out what Jesus was reading. Or, I mean, we are followers of Jesus. Shouldn't we find out what he read and what was his book? All right. Anyways, God bless. Come back. They say you're supposed to leave these videos with a call to action. There's a like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications or blah, blah, blah. Or don't. It's okay. All right. God bless.